my daddy's making it hurt.
Yes, sir. Deep cover. Here. Felt like we were just here not that long ago, but now we're right back. We're going to touch on the defensive side of the ball this time. If you haven't already, go back and check out the offense position group review breakdown that we did. Go through every single group, essentially most, not every single player, because some of those dudes, I'll be honest, I was not familiar with some of those people,
Mhm.
but the majority of players we did talk about, we did discuss. So definitely go back and check that one out if you haven't, or listen to this one first and then go back and listen to that one. Hit them both. You definitely should hit them both, because I think you're going to get a lot out of it. So let's jump into the defense right now. Again, joined by Chris and Carey. um, we've done the intros, so y'all can go back and listen to those if you want to hear about Chris going to the beach. Uh,
Mhm.
you can catch that in the first one. We just gonna jump right in here with the defense, and we're gonna start up front with the defensive line. And some of these designations may be different than where these guys actually line up. Again, similar system to what the Ravens have run on defense the last several years, but new coach. So we've seen each one of these guys, even though they know the system, whether it's Mike Mack, whether it's Jesse Mentor, whether it's Zach. Each guy puts their own little spin, on seasoning on it, where it might be just a little bit different in terms of their version of it. But one of the big wild cards here, right up front. So we'll just start. Namdi Matabike, right? Is he back? Is he not back? Uh, st- Still, I guess officially an unknown. Although when the coaching staff is asked about him, Mentor's like he's in the building. He's doing the stuff that he can do right now, even though he might not be a part of the overall program that they were working before they broke. He was doing the stuff that he was able to do. So might be back, might not be back. I think that's still kind of up in the air right now. I lean towards back based on some of the things that have been coming out. But even if he is, I think we gotta temper expectations because, as I'm always reminded, return to play does not equal return to performance. So that could take some time. But anyway, Namdi, Calais Campbell, got Travis Jones, got Broderick Washington, John Jenkins, Aeneas Peebles, CJ Okoye, who got some run last year. Of course, Rayshon Benny, who they drafted late this year, and then a couple other guys in Aaron Graves, David Olajiga, possibly, and Dion Wilson Jr. So, a lot of names there at the end. I think some of the names I led with are names that we know and are familiar with. We're gonna reverse the order this time, and we're gonna start with Chris. Chris, what do you think about this D line group going into camp?
Yeah, I tend to lean, where you're leaning when it comes to Matabike. Um, I do think he'll come back. All signs are pointing to that. If we had to guess, just from what they're telling us and some of the things that we see as far as him working out, him being at the facility and things like that. Like I would be shocked if he's not going to be back. Um, to me, Calais is coming back. That was so big.
Mm,
It's huge, and this is not this is not the Jacksonville Calais Campbell, obviously. But if you watched the Arizona Cardinals games last year and you watched him go to work, you were like, damn, I wish the Ravens had this dude right now.
mhm.
Because he can still get after the quarterback. He could still, set the edge on, if you need him to. And that's something that the Ravens have been searching for since he left.
Yep.
And the fact that they can bring him in and he doesn't have to come in and play so many snaps. I think that's going to be huge for not only for him but for the team in general, because let's just say you have Travis Jones, you have Namdi. Those two guys are your starters.
Mhm.
Calais is coming in fresh, and uh, you got to. I know he's not somebody that fans really like, but Broderick Washington, he's going to be in the mix too.
Mhm.
And Aeneas Peebles, he's a guy I was super excited about.
Yeah.
After that, he gave up a big run against the Texans, and they were like, "Go grab yourself a nice little warm up suit. You will not be needing your uniform anymore."
That was it.
That was it for my man. But hopefully year two he can come back and in a different scheme. Hopefully, Mentor and Weaver they can unlock what he has to offer because anybody who watches tape, they know that this dude is supremely talented. Obviously undersized, but there's a lot of skill there when it comes to rushing the passer. Now, where's he going to be when it comes to having to hold up against the run and be where he's expected to be? Because all of those things that's how you earn the coach's trust, and
Mhm.
obviously he didn't earn the
Mhm.
last regime's trust when it comes to that. But another year in the NFL, probably coming in with a bit of a chip on his shoulder with how the rookie season went. But and this room that he's in, and not just him, but these young guys. You mentioned CJ who got some run last year. Um, Obviously, they have Rayshon Benny, who's another guy. I don't know how the hell he I don't know what happened with this draft class, but I I can't call it when it comes to Benny because he's a guy who I thought for sure would have been a fifth rounder.
Mhm.
Um, but with a guy like Calais, man, that's just a wealth of knowledge, and he's somebody who, just from the outside looking in, I think he was a huge part of Namdi becoming the
Oh yeah.
Namdi that we saw.
Oh yeah.
Every one of those mic'd up segments that they had, you would always see Calais in Namdi's ear.
Mhm.
These dudes cannot be in front of you. Like you're way better than them. Like, you would always see him preaching that stuff.
Mhm.
And to have that, I know a lot of us we listen to these podcasts with former players, whether it's basketball, whether it's baseball, whether it's football, and they talk about how important having vets are
Yeah.
in those rooms. And Calais, he's what he's gonna bring to this defensive line room and the wealth of knowledge that he's gonna pass on to these dudes. It's gonna be immense for their careers and how they project going forward. And I'm really excited about the defensive line. Just hoping they can all stay healthy.
Yeah, you make a great point about listening to, these players when they do podcasts, they do interviews or whatever, and almost to a man, they all talk about how, yeah, coaches are important. Nobody's, writing that off. But you do most of your learning from vets. You do most
Right.
of your learning from other players in your position group who are out there, on the field or on the court or wherever, doing what you're doing, playing the position you're playing, doing the things that you're being asked to do. And you're right. He was always telling Nandi that because he knew all of the physical ability was there, but it was about mindset. He was trying to develop that mindset in him. Like they cannot block you. There is
Hmm.
nobody out here who can block you. Okay, if you're not making plays, that's because of you. You're
Right.
holding yourself back because there ain't nobody across the side, the other side of that line who can block you if you want to make a play. And then we saw that the following season when he really had that breakout season. So, that's just invaluable, right? Somebody who's been around as long as Calais, who's done it at the level that he's done it, who, like you said, Chris, still kind of doing it um, even last year. And he's talked about that. He said, hey, I might not be able to give you 60 plays anymore. I can give you 30, 35 plays that I think
Hmm.
are still, pretty high end. And I think you could still see that on some stats last year where they're on, Tyler, you still got to put four hands on him, right? You
Yep.
got he still can command a double team, which is going to free somebody else up. to make a play, and he still make plays in his own right too. So it's not like he just out there eating blocks. He can make plays in his own right as well. So I think all of us are big Calais fans. Of course, like you said, they've been trying to get him back ever since he left,
Yeah.
because they know how valuable he is on the field and in the locker room. And so, yeah, I think it's just a boost to that defensive line room and the entire defense, really, the team, really, in general, because that's a pro's pro right there, man. I mean, he just understands the game. He understands what this is about, what it takes to win, and to perform. So I think that's only going to be a benefit. So, Carey, your thoughts on this group? A lot of ability, some vets in there, some young guys. I think it's a good mix.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I'm really excited about this group. I'm glad Chris pointed out with Calais just how well he played last year with Arizona. I mean, you watch it, he's still a force against the pass, he's still a force against the run. It's almost like you liken it to like these real great veteran NBA players that you watch, take LeBron, for instance, where you watch them play and they're so advanced from a mental standpoint that it's almost like they're not even playing against the opponent. They're just playing the game. Like, just get to my spots. I can do this. I know to do that. Because they've seen so much, they know the counters to everything. And that's what it feels like Calais is doing. He's so advanced in the game, um, that he's kind of more or less playing against himself, and he still has the physical gifts to overwhelm offensive linemen, but he has the knowledge of just a scrappy vet that needs to do all of these certain things just to get by. It's kind of like the blend of the two things. So having him back in the room, having just the player first and then the person as well, which is like, as Chris and you guys just pointed out, which is just as important. His impact in this 1 year is going to live on for years after because of what he's going to get, the game that he's going to give Rashawn Benny and some of
Hmm.
these other guys. They're going to carry that forward in their career and carry that on to guys that come after them. So, I mean, you just can't say enough how big of a signing this was. And, obviously, Namdi is the big one here. He's the ceiling setter. Um, it's good that his injury wasn't something that you would think would affect play. It's just about him being able to get back on the field.
Mhm.
It's not like we're talking about an ACL or something where there is a kind of a ramp back up period to get back to where he was. This is something that if he can get back on the field, you feel pretty good about him being able to be the player that he was before he left. And if that's the case with him, with Calais, with what Travis has turned into, now we're cooking now, because
Mhm.
this can be an imposing interior trio that will also allow everybody to stay fresh, because you don't have to lean so much on one particular guy. And that staying fresh piece is important, because if you look at Mentor, especially last year with the Chargers, I didn't look at the previous year, but he's used more of a rotation at the interior D line than what we're used to with the Ravens. So I think guys like Aeneas Peebles, if he's able to tap into his potential, there'll be a role for him. Rayshon Benny, if he's able to hit the ground running, there'll be a role for him. You got John Jenkins coming back. He can provide some good rotational snaps. So overall, man, it's just a really good group that if Namdi can't come back, I still think it's a good, solid unit that will be able to execute, uh, what Mentor's defense requires. But if Namdi is back and he's the Namdi that we know, we're talking about this group being able to spearhead potentially one of the best defenses in the NFL.
Yeah. And it sets us up for a nice segue into the next group, the outside linebackers, because you got a couple guys, at least one, maybe probably more than one, in this group who could also kick inside in obvious pass rushing
Yeah.
downs, and even add a little bit more juice to the defensive line group that we just talked about. So uh, we'll do outside linebackers and we'll do inside linebackers. We'll separate them. But so we'll start outside backers. I think, the headliner, obviously Trey Hendrickson, the big signing on that side of the ball, big signing overall, really, in the all season. I think we all know the Max Crosby saga and what that was. But not bad after that kind of falling through the way it did to still be able to get Trey Hendrickson. We know what he's been from a pass rush perspective with the Bengals. So that obviously is huge. And then Mike Green in year two, I think a lot of people are excited about him and the potential uh, of lining up opposite a legit pass rusher like Trey Hendrickson. Um, Tavius Robinson, we know what he is, just solid lunch pail, going to work and just, be a long day having to block him. Zion Young, who they took this year, who I think, we all were pretty high on just because he's kind of that classic mold, right? Raven, just physical type of dude, not to mention the personality. Adisa Isaac, who, has struggled, right? A lot of injuries, battled through a lot of injuries. So this is probably a show improve year for him to even, remain on the roster. And then, undrafted free agent in Ethan Burke. And then Kymon Rucker. Don't forget my man Kymon Rucker from UNC, who I want to say was undrafted free agent last year in 2025, who I thought, had some nice tape in college. Again, another
Yeah.
physical guy, another
Mhm.
physical guy. So, be interesting to watch him throughout camp and the preseason. But Chris, start up top with you. Like I said, Trey Hendrickson, kind of the headliner of this outside backer group, but I know there's some other guys in there that you're excited to see too.
Yeah, obviously getting Trey Hendrickson, that was, I mean, I remember where I was when I found out the Max Crosby trade didn't go through.
Yeah.
I was taking a little nap because I'm a man that likes to take naps, and I got woken up by so many text messages, and I was like, no, don't tell me this is happening. But
Couldn't be worse.
little did I know, it was a blessing.
Yeah.
Because when you say, would you rather have Max Crosby or would you rather have Vega Ioane and Trey Hendrickson? I'm
Mm,
taking Trey Hendrickson and Vega Ioane every day.
mm,
And still have our 2027 first round pick.
yeah.
Which is going to be a crazy draft, by the way.
Mm.
Um, so obviously, Trey Hendrickson, hopefully he could stay healthy. I have some questions about that whole game that he was playing when it comes to him not being healthy enough. I just think a lot of that was posturing with the Bengals, who we know can be very frugal and very unfair to their players.
Extremely.
So he was like, you know what? I'm a little bit hurt, so I'm not
Yeah.
going to play.
Yeah.
So I don't have too much concern when it comes to that. Now, Mike Green. Mike Green's rookie season, it did not go the way that I had anticipated. I thought he was going to struggle when it came to doing the dirty work in the run game. And not to say it was flawless, but in my opinion, he held up a hell of a lot better than I thought he would. When it came to playing the amount of snaps that he played, because they had to depend on him way more than I bet they anticipated they were going to have to. When they drafted him, oh, this is going to be our third down demon. This is going to be our guy that we can just have him pin his ears back and just focus on getting to the quarterback year one. But injuries and now he's getting, you know, every damn snap almost. And to me, where he struggled with was rushing through his no pun intended, rushing through his rush plan,
Mm.
where he was trying to be fast instead of just doing everything. And I did a side by side with him doing his cross chop in college and versus him doing the cross chop in the pros. And in college, his movement was so smooth and fluid. But in the pros, it was a little bit sloppier, and he was just trying to do it fast. And to me, when you're thinking about playing fast, you're not going to play fast. When you're not thinking, that's when you actually play fast. And I'm hoping in year two we can get more of that, where he isn't so concerned with thinking about his assignment, thinking about his technique so much, where he can just let loose and play and just be free and comfortable. And we know Mentor, he gives his guys free range when it comes to rushing the passer. And we know that these guys don't have so well, we know that his edge rushers don't have so much on their plate where it comes to, oh, we need to, contain this. And we kind of heard him speak about it on the lounge a little bit, where he's like, talking about the kind of responsibilities that they had in that OR system. You
Mhm.
know, with Mentor, it's more about attack,
Yeah.
getting to that quarterback. And I'm super excited. He's number one on my list. I mentioned about players I'm excited to see who
Mhm.
have something to prove or who are young in their NFL career. He's number one on the list of who I want to see. And then maybe the biggest thing, he's got rid of the number 45 and is back to 15.
There we go.
That's I mean, if that's not a sign, I don't know what is.
No, no, you
Um,
gotta look good.
yep.
You look good. You play good.
But I have high hopes for him, and I really hope that he can take a step in his progression and really put up some numbers across, lining up across from Trey Hendrickson. And then you mentioned Tavius Robinson. We know what we have in him. Just
Mhm.
gonna be a dog, gonna do the dirty work, gonna just run through offensive linemen's faces. And he's the prototypical lunch pail type of player. And hopefully he could stay healthy, because last year he was off to a good start before he got hurt. So I'm hoping Tavis can stay healthy and really contribute to this D line, because it's looking promising. This is one of the most promising ones that we've had in a while. So I'm excited about it. And obviously Zion Young. Um, I think people need to temper their expectations when it comes to Zion Young. Um, I don't I don't think he's going to be a high sack total kind of player. To me, what he is in that Jarrett Johnson mold. A guy who's going to fuck shit up.
That's it. That's what I
That
expect.
Yep, that is a tone setting, no nonsense, bring the ruckus kind of player. That's what I'm expecting from him. I'm not expecting a 10 sack guy, nothing like that. I'm a dirty work player. That's what I think he's going to be, and a guy who's going to bring energy to this defense, and the type of attitude that this defense has been lacking, in my opinion. I think he's going to bring that kind of edge to this, no pun intended again, edge group. Um, Now Adisa Isaac, he's a guy we know has some talent, former third round pick from Brooklyn, so we know he's good.
We know that.
Uh, but he's got to stay healthy. He has to stay healthy, because right now he's going into year three and he's barely even touched grass. And I hope that he can stay healthy. Uh, but like they say, you can't make the club in the tub. So he's got to figure that out. And Rucker, like you said, Rucker, he was a guy that I really liked when coming out of North Carolina. He was somebody that they asked him to do a little bit of everything. There were times where they asked him to drop back in coverage, and that was a place where, for somebody who was known as a pass rusher, I thought he looked comfortable going backwards too.
Mhm.
He's a guy who has multiple moves, a little bit undersized, but I think there's something there with him, and maybe we'll see a little bit. If Isaac gets hurt again, maybe you'll see him get some more burn in the preseason. He's somebody I think could be sneaky on this list.
Yeah, and as we are now on the defensive side of the ball, and particularly as we start to get into the backers and then even into the DBs, these guys on the back end of these position groups, they're going to make their bones on special teams. Yeah, they're
Hmm.
going to get an opportunity to play in the preseason and play their position, right? Play on defense, but to have the opportunity to make the team for most of those guys, it's going to be about special teams. And so, to your point, number one, you got to be healthy, and then if you can stay healthy, you're going to have to kind of show up on special teams to show that, hey, this is the value that I can add. I understand there's some guys in front of me playing the position on defense. I'm not overtaking those guys, but I still add enough value on the special teams that I need to be on the roster and active too. Like just
Hmm.
being on the roster is step one, and then I also have earned and shown that I need to have a roster and be active because of the value that I'm gonna add, and then gradually that translates into getting opportunities on the defense where they work you into some rotations and some packages, and you go from there. We've seen that time and time again with different guys kind of take that same path. So that's going to be important for these guys, kind of younger guys or guys at the end of these position groups. But Carey, uh, get your thoughts now on this outside backer group and what you see.
Yeah, I mean, for the first time in God knows how long, I'm looking at this group and I'm not squinting at the ceiling. Like it's a legitimate ceiling here with this group. I mean, Trey Hendrickson is the first guy, obviously. Um, that dude just a professional pass rusher, man.
That's what he does.
The bag is unlimited.
He
Like
does with no gloves.
right.
It's just crazy. But
Yeah, so I mean, adding that type of player to your mix just it pushes everybody else down a notch, and then it makes it so the guys that are coming after him are just in better, more advantageous situations. I'm glad that Chris pointed out Mike Green's the ruggedness he showed last year. I think that's a great sign. And then when I just think about how he projects to this defense, I just go back to how Owe was used last year under Mentor, and I think you just carbon copy plug that right in, you know, wide opposite Henderson, and just let him work. And so I think that is going to be a great combination. But then you have uh, T Rob, who is just going to do the dirty work, who can give you a little bit of everything. And as you mentioned before, you can kick him inside some, and you can play some interesting games that way. And then Zion Young, I feel like his upside is as a pass rusher is kind of being undersold a little bit. Like I don't think he's going to be like this double digit sack guy. Maybe not even more than like 8 or 9 a season, but I feel like he's a little bit more athletic on tape than I think he's given credit for. And I think that 10-yard split, I think it was 171 10-yard split, which is really good for a player of his ilk and his size. I just think that I think he's a guy that could bully his way to 8 sacks a season
mm,
just off of sheer physicality, bull rush, attitude, relentlessness, and then you combine that with I think underrated physical gifts. I think he's a guy that can bully his way to, 8 sacks. Um, and so, and then obviously what he does against the run, what he does as a tone setter, just generally for your football team, I think that was an amazing ad to get a guy like that. And then, Adisa Isaac, now you're kind of playing with house money now. The foundation is there with the first four guys I just named, and now you got a talented former third round pick who the opportunity is here to try to make the team and see what you can do. He's still 24 years old, so you know I I don't give up on anybody, but I definitely don't give up on talented 24-year-olds, especially when it's not costing you anything to see what you have in them. So, all in all, just a really, really uh, talented group who, for once in, like I said, I don't know how many years, there's a legitimate ceiling here. Like we shouldn't go into this questioning the pass rush as we have in previous years.
Yeah, and with Mentor calling this defense, we saw like you talked about Owe going over there to the Chargers, and kind of how his pass rush game took off once he got over there. It's similar to when Mike Mack was here, right? You saw guys um, just that part of their game just really take off, and I want to say they led the league in sacks that last year with Mike Mack, or at least we're near the
Yeah, I
top
think so.
of it. Certainly, we're up there in pressures. Of course, we know sacks are not everything, but they were, pressures. They were up there in that category as well. So, I fully expect that you'll see a similar type of impact with this Jesse Mentor defensive, with him calling the defense. That you're gonna see a bunch of guys who the guys who we know, like you said, Trey Hendrickson, professional pass rusher. So we know what he's bringing to the table, right? Mike Green, we know the ability that he has. And to the point that Chris made and you echoed it, I think, we'll see, some of that materialize a little bit more this year. And then you've got these other guys who, we've all talked about, whether it's Tavius, whether it's Zion Young. And, you made the point I really like you made about Zion is, and it's one of my favorite things I've heard a coach. I can't remember who said it. It was a college coach, but he was talking about pass rushers, and he was saying, moves are important. All of that matters. Having a bag, that's important. But he's like, get off and effort, still win. That still wins. That will always win. So you showed me a guy who gets off the ball and who plays with relentless effort. He's still going to find a way to get to the quarterback and affect the quarterback. And I think when you watch Zion's tape, you see that all day, right? You don't question the effort at all. So, what will the numbers be? We don't know, but we know that translates. Get off and effort. That translates from college to the pro level. So let's move over to the inside backers now, and of course, Roquan is the undisputed leader of this group. Teddy Buchanan, who's going to be coming back from injury, I thought had a solid rookie season. I'm not even sure going into the season that they were expecting him to get into the role that he got into, where he essentially became a starter opposite Roquan. So that's a lot for any player as a rookie, but particularly a fourth round guy. But I think considering before his injury, considering he got into that role, I think he acquitted himself well. Trenton Simpson, I will say that there probably was not like a lot of positives we could point to in the Zach Orr defense last year. But one thing that I will give them credit for is I think they finally found a role for Trenton Simpson and how he could be effective. Where I'm not really sure what they called him in their scheme, but the way that they used him, where he's kind of this pass rusher that can come from anywhere. He's somebody who can spy QB in certain situations. He's somebody you can run games with. You somebody who you can even drop him back kind of in the shallow underneath zone in certain situations. That role seemed to suit him, because obviously his calling card is athleticism. And so being able to use him in roles or positions where he's able to really lean on that athleticism, um, I think that was a good fit for him. I'm not sure, what Mentor will do and how he'll be using this system, but that to be seen. Jay Higgins, another guy coming back from injury, who showed a little something in the preseason last year. Um, Dominic DeLuca, undrafted rookie out of Penn State. I think I tweeted out some clips of him on special teams, just blocking kicks and making tackles and just raising hell on special teams. So I would think that would continue for him in the league, and that's if he's got an opportunity to get onto the practice squad, I think that's probably his path. And then we'll round the inside backers out with Carl Jones Jr., who looks like he might have been in Chicago last year. I have to double check that. And then Reed Williford, an undrafted free agent this year. So let me get Chris back in, and then we'll get his thoughts on this inside backer group. I can't for some reason. Oh, here we go. All right, there you go, Chris.
My bad. I was having some technical difficulties, but I am back.
You are back. You are back. So inside linebackers. That's who's up next. So how you feeling about this group? Like I said, of course, we know Roquan is the unquestioned leader of this group, and then kind of like last year, a bunch of young guys in there, and some guys coming back from injury too.
Well, first and foremost, I was happy to see Roquan slim down a little bit, and I was happy to hear his assessment of the disappointment that he had in his play last year. Obviously there's sometimes where, guys get a little bit comfortable. Everybody's seen Rocky, and when he got comfortable, and Clubber Lang was on his neck, and is this Roquan's, wake up call where it's like, oh, you know what? I did kind of get a little bit complacent, and I want to get back to that all pro level that I was playing at before. And I'm excited to see him in this system, and with this kind of, it sounded like he was a little kind of reinvigorated, and wanting to prove that he is still that player that he was when he first signed that big contract with the Ravens. So I'm excited to see how his year plays out. I've been mentioning guys that I'm excited about, and Trenton Simpson is one of them. I want to see how Jesse Minter is going to use him, because I still have a lot of faith in Simpson. I think he's an incredibly talented player. He's a guy who can do multiple things. He's a really good tackler, really good blitzer. I hope that Jesse Minter can really find a role for him and develop him into probably not he probably won't ever be a star type of player, but an important guy that you need in your defense. A guy who can wear many hats in your defense, where you can ask him to blitz, you can ask him to cover, you can ask him to play in the middle of the defense. But I think there's so many things that you could do with Trent Simpson now. It's just picking and choosing the spots where you want to deploy him. And I hope that Jesse Minter is a guy who can do that, because the last regime kind of struggled in finding a spot for him and how to use him. So for Trenton's sake and for the team's sake, I hope that he can have a more prominent role on this defense. Not to forget about Teddy, because Teddy came in and Teddy was doing his thing before he tore his ACL. And I hate that he tore his ACL, because I'm excited about year 2 for Teddy, but I don't know when he's projected to come back. Obviously, we're not privy to that timeline, but he's somebody else who, I would love to see how he's going to look in year 2, because year 1, he exceeded my expectations with how fast he was able to earn a role on that team. And it wasn't perfect, obviously. I mean, he's a rookie. He's a fourth round rookie. Like it's not going to be perfect, but the way that he played last season, his rookie year, I was like, damn, this kid is going to be good. So hopefully he can come back from that ACL injury and pick up where he left off and really contribute on this team. Uh, Another guy, Jay Higgins, who I know he's a fan favorite. I know his pops is somebody who's always in Ravens Twitter and is always giving love to the fans and to Ravens Nation. So he's somebody who I hope he can find a role. Uh, Definitely is gonna have to be on special teams because, well, not definitely because we gotta see how Teddy comes back. And if there's any kind of delay with his ACL. So he's somebody who could maybe carve out a nice little role if Teddy is taking a little bit longer than expected. You got Carl Jones, who's a guy who's been in the league for a few seasons now, and somebody who has a special teams background as well. So it's an interesting group. I like it. Um, but I'm the guy who I'm most excited to see is Trent Simpson.
Yeah, I've been a fan. I've been a fan since the Clemson days, and like you said, under uh, Harbs, didn't really ever seem like they could find um, a role for him until, like I mentioned, with Zach or last year, it seemed like they kind of tapped into something with, hey, let's move him here, let's move him there, let's lean into his versatility and athleticism instead of trying to lock him in the box and make him read and react. He needs to be in a little bit more space, be in some more defined roles where it's not as much reading and analysis. It's just like, hey, attack, go
Hmm.
attack. And that really plays into his athleticism. So I think I have a lot of confidence in mentors' ability to know how to use players and how to unlock what they're good at, really tap into their strengths. So yeah, I just kind of want to see how he's going to do it. I feel confident he'll do it. I'm just
Hmm.
not sure how he's going to do it. So I want to see what it's going to look like. But Carey, get your thoughts on these inside linebackers.
Yeah, it's an interesting group, and I think you guys laid out some really key points. Starting with Roquan, I think this is a pivotal year for him. I think this is a year um, that he should have a chip on his shoulder, and it seems that that is the case. He's age 29 now, has had some decline, has played a little bit heavier than he probably should, and I think now is kind of like prove it time that you're still that guy, under a new regime as far as the coaching staff. I think this is something where, hey, if you don't show that you are um, worthy of that contract and worthy of being a pillar of this defense, then they'll probably be bringing somebody in next year that to replace you in that role.
Mhm.
So it's going to be paramount for him to come in and stay in great shape and prove that he can still be that guy. So I'm glad that it seems like he's taking that on. And then you talk about Teddy. Uh, I think it was a couple of weeks ago. Mentor said that he was far ahead of schedule. Um,
Mm.
that's really all he said. So we don't know exactly what that means as far as his readiness to play to start the season. I think this is a position that it could be ripe for a veteran once we get into training camp or early in the preseason, just depending on what the prognosis is for Teddy. Um, I really like Trenton Simpson as well. I'm glad that they found a way to kind of like weaponize his athleticism last season. It was it was almost like he wasn't playing the inside linebacker position. It's kind of like he's playing a different specialized position from everybody else. They just found ways to weaponize, like I said, weaponize his athleticism. And I think there's a clear template there on how to use him. And it doesn't have to be every down. He doesn't have to be the second starting inside linebacker, but you can still maximize what he does and get good play out of him, get splash plays out of him, and I think Mentor is the kind of guy that will see that and be able to replicate that. So, you know, I like that, going in. And the rest of the group, I mean, there's a lot of guys that, could excel as special teamers. I think that was Carl Jones's calling card last year in Chicago. So it'd be nice to see, if he can carry that over. And then outside of that, really, I mean, the big domino is Teddy, where he is from a health standpoint. But there are some good, I think, inside linebacker free agents that you can probably get for next to nothing right now if he doesn't prove to be ready and they don't feel great about Simpson as an every down dude. Guys like Matt Milano are out there that I think can give you some competent, trustworthy interior linebacker play. Even a guy down the board like a Shat Thompson, he had to fill in for Buffalo last year, and he played really well for them. So he's another guy that I think, they obviously they don't have a ton of cap space, but a dude that you can get on the cheap that can come in and I think really, really help, your football team. Um, and, yeah, that's pretty much it that I have for the position. I mean, it's a pretty, I feel good about the shape that they're in, but like I said, I want to see what Roquan we get coming in, and then how healthy is Teddy coming in.
Yeah, Carl Jones. I wanted to look it up because I saw on the screen here. They say he's with Chicago, and you mentioned it too, Kerry. And he was, but he was also on the Ravens, which I did not realize that he was already
Oh,
there
yeah,
in 2025, the back half of the season. So he played 9 games in the earlier part of the season with the Bears and had pretty good special teams production, like you said, Kerry. He had 6 tackles in 9 games. So on special teams, that's pretty solid
yeah,
production. And then those 4 games, it was like weeks 15 through 18 with the Ravens. No tackles, had an assist, but you're coming over later in the season, new defense, special teams scheme, trying to pick that up. After having played nine games in a whole nother system. So I think you hit the nail on the head. He definitely profiles as special teams contributor. You never know. Maybe he can be one of those core guys on special teams, but we'll see. All right, let's go to corners and then we'll do safeties and then we'll wrap it up. So we'll start with corner first. We'll separate corners and safeties. And I'm not going to do corner versus nickel. I'm just going to lump all the corners together. I suppose we can mention some guys who we think might play inside at nickel. Obviously, Marlon comes to mind. Kyle's a safety, of course, but Kyle plays wherever Kyle wants to play. And he can play in a bunch of different spots. But we'll start with corner. So we know Nasty Nate, coming into this year. It was interesting to hear him. I've seen that clip kind of make the rounds about saying he's not been healthy since high school. And so he's had off-season surgery and he feels like he's finally healthy. So that's exciting. If he feels that way, obviously the talent has been there and he's had production, in the league. So, that's exciting. Marlon, we talked about Marlon is Marlon. Cheeto is they brought Cheeto Uzie back and solid vet contributor. TJ Tampa, who made some strides last year. So going to be interesting to see what he does moving forward. Couple other vets who were undrafted guys last year, different teams, but Ravens signed them. Amani O, we're just going to go with Amani O. I'm not going to butcher his last name. Marquise Robinson, Chandler Rivers from Duke, who they drafted this year, exciting young guy. Of course, you had the guys from last year who unfortunately, both got hurt and ended up missing the season. And Bilal Kone and was it Robert Longerbeam? And then, some names. I'm not going to pretend that I'm familiar with who Marquise Robinson is, but Ladarius Webb Jr., if you want to feel old, talk about wanting to feel old. Ladarius Webb Jr. And then, let me not forget Keon Martin, who got on the field decent amount last year at nickel. So, you got a couple guys in there who kind of project in at nickel. A couple guys who project outside, and I know I'm not saying this because I'm cool with Marlon because, like I said, Marlon is Marlon. But I know a lot of people, because of his contract, because of his age, and maybe wondered if they were going to move Marlon at some point. Um, I'll just say this: Detroit all of a sudden has a need at corner.
Mm.
Uh, don't certainly want to joke or make light of the situation that Terry Arnold was involved in. 'Cause anytime you are involved in people getting kidnapped and robbed, that ain't nothing to joke about. But from a football perspective, they released him, and I'm just saying. So, not that I'm trying to move Marlon,
It sounds
but
like you are.
I really am not. I really am not. I'm just, we do this. Y'all know how we talk. We got to think about all the
Yeah.
angles, all the possibilities that are out there, and sometimes you just explore something, and that's all it is, just exploration. It don't go no further than that. And then other times, sometimes it materializes into something. So I just thought that was interesting. That kind of happened, and that happens not those specific circumstances, but teams having need at a position where maybe it didn't look like they were going to have need, kind of, as we head into the season, sometimes even in the training camp and in the preseason. And we know over the years, Ravens have made moves to acquire players and to send players to other teams during that time of the year before the regular season starts too. So anyway, Chris, again, we'll start off with you. Your thoughts on the cornerback group.
All right. So
A lot of corners.
yes. um well, this is well, if we follow the Marlowe schedule, this is the schedule, this is the time where he's supposed to be good.
So don't trade him. Don't.
Yeah. So this might be, let him have his good season, then at the end of the year, then you trade him. But Marlowe, obviously he's the guy who can wear multiple hats, whether he's playing the boundary, whether he's playing nickel. So it's going to be interesting to see where they deploy him in this system. If I had to guess, I would say that he's going to play the boundary because it seems like, to me, he's like the quintessential Jesse Minter cornerback, where he wants guys that can beat up wide receivers, that can impose their will on wide receivers. And I think Marlowe is that type of cornerback, and the type that Jesse Minter likes in his system. So I think if I had to project, I would say he's going to be a boundary corner this year. Obviously, we got Nate, and like you said, Mike, I mean, if he hasn't been playing 100%, that's pretty
High
crazy.
school. Since
Yeah,
high
that's pretty crazy.
I'm
Um,
like, damn, Nate.
but like we said, so hopefully we could see that next progression, and hopefully he can be that CB1 that we've been hoping for, that we've been anticipating since he got drafted, because we know he has that kind of skill set to be a top flight cover corner in this league. Now it's just putting it all together, being in the right system, because I don't think the Zach Orr scheme did him any favors, as far as the kind of skill set that he has. Cheeto, wily vet, very reliable. As far as his play on the field, now he has to stay healthy. That's been his bugaboo throughout his year. I mean, his career. And last year we kind of saw that, towards the end of the season, where he was starting to build up those, little nagging soft tissue injuries. So hopefully he can stay healthy. But, I mentioned that Minter likes those physical cornerbacks, and TJ Tampa, that's the kind of mold that he fits. He's a physical, longer cornerback who can get his hands on wide receivers. So I think he's someone that can benefit from the new coaching scheme. Um, Now Chandler Rivers, he's one of those guys who, I liken him to a Tavon Young type of player.
Yeah, he's taking.
You know, that scrappy, just, yeah, you might be bigger than me, but I'm gonna punch you in your damn mouth. I don't give a damn type of player. And I'm biased when it comes to those smaller cornerbacks who they might not have the all the physical tools, but they're going to make up for it with their intelligence. They're going to make up for it with the anticipation that they play with the intelligence that they have, the scrappiness, the toughness. And let's not get it twisted. He got ball skills too. Like he's not just a guy that's just out there banging his head into the ground. Like he's a guy who can get some turnovers for you too. So I'm excited to see how he is. And you mentioned him last, Mike, but Keon Martin, he did his thing. He came out of nowhere, and in the limited reps that he got, I thought he showed out. And again, these are good problems that you have, like where you're looking at a guy who made it onto the roster, then he was able to carve out a little bit of a role for himself and not only play that role because he had to, but did well in that role. And now you're looking at Chandler Rivers, you're looking at Keon Martin, and you're like, damn, like these dudes are going to be battling it out,
Mhm.
and that's exciting when you look at the cornerback room, and just when you look at your roster like as a whole, you want to have these type of battles where it's like, I don't know who the hell's going to win, but I'm excited to watch this battle, and that's what this cornerback room is. When you look at the guys on the back end of the rotation, it's going to be a dogfight because Kone, he's a guy who I really liked last season. Well, not last season. He's a guy who I really liked coming out of the draft. Longer beam, he was another smaller, scrappy guy who can give you some inside outside versatility as well. You know, those guys are going to come back and they're going to want to stick around on this roster too because they got their rookie years cut short.
Mhm.
So it's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out and who can earn a spot on this team. But I'm definitely excited to see how it goes.
Yeah, Carey, I'll come to you on this, and I know this is something you've talked about before with Jesse Mentor. If you look at the cornerback groups that he had with the Chargers, maybe not necessarily as much premium talent in terms of draft capital, and still was able to, have that secondary produce at a really high level. Now you add some premium talent to a guy who already knows how to coach up the secondary, and the prospects are even more exciting. But what are your thoughts on this group, man?
Yeah, I mean, this is a good group overall, a deep group. I mean, looking at it, they're probably going to end up cutting one to two corners that are legit NFL corners in my eyes when
Mm.
I like look at just the depth chart here. Um, Starts with Marlon. Marlon to me is in the same boat as Roquan, where you he's got a bit of a target on his back because some uneven play. And maybe part of that is him, and maybe part of that is scheme related, and maybe part of that is pass rush related. But I think the effort is always there with him, the accountability is always there with him. So, I have a fair amount of confidence that he can bounce back. And like you said, Mike, he is um, a good fit for this scheme. Um, so I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. Cheeto, I think, is just a guy that is annually kind of underrated. So I think he, as your third corner, I think you can do a lot worse than that. Nate, we know, has all the ability in the world to not only be like a really good corner, like he can be a legitimate great corner. His upside presents that. Um, TJ Tampa is a guy that should have an opportunity, big, long. physical corner who fits a zone scheme. Um, I'm glad you guys pointed out Keon Martin last year. I mean, when he got his opportunity, he balled out. Like he was a legitimate playmaker in the slot. So very curious to see what he looks like coming back. And then Kone is another guy that I think we were high on last year in the draft process after taking a look at him. And then you got Chandler Rivers, who what's important when you're talking about going to predominantly more zone and more too high, your secondary players have to be sound, they have to be physical, and they have to be able to come up and tackle. Rivers just doesn't have the size, but as far as that other stuff, he's bringing that in spades. Like he will come up and attack and be physical, and so to have that attitude from your slack guys with him and Martin, to have that depth there, to have a Humphrey who will bring that attitude and that physicality, to have a Nate Wiggins who, even though he doesn't have the size necessarily, he's going to come up and be physical as well. So all in all, it's just a really talented group, a deep group, and I'm just curious to see if we just see more ball production naturally just based on scheme alone. We're not talking about any of these guys necessarily as these ball hawks, but if you just make the system a more aggressive system and guys are moving forward more than they're moving backwards, I think we see more ball production just based off of that alone. And maybe you might see a guy who you didn't necessarily think was a ball hawk might mess around and get 5 or 6 picks just based off of being in the right place at the right time with the right temperament in this system. So I'm really, really curious to see that part of things.
Okay, we're gonna finish it up with the safeties. We'll touch on the specialists real quick at the end. But really, I could even say it now. I mean, Luke make kicks. Uh,
Mhm,
you got a rookie punter. They were in this boat a couple years ago. Uh, create field position, right? And Nick Moore
mhm.
is going to do what he's a veteran long snapper. So I mean, we could talk about those guys after we finish the safeties if you guys want to. But I'm like, they're listen. It's like Sam Cooke used to say, "Congratulations on doing your job." Right. So that's what we need to those guys to do out there. Safeties. Let's do safeties then, because this is a group that I'm excited about. I mean, obviously, you've got an all pro, all everything in the group with Kyle Hamilton. I think people who have followed us going back to even last year when we did the bracket show know how big of a Malachi Starks fan I am, and I'm really excited to see him in year two in this defense with a guy who not only is mentor calling the plays, he's got a DB coach background, right? He's worked with the secondary primarily, as he's kind of winded his way up to head coach, and then Mike Mickens, coming in from Notre Dame. So I'm just really excited about that for Malachi. Jalen Hawkins comes over from the Patriots, fresh off appearing in the Super Bowl. He had a good year there. We talked about Keon Martin and how he kind of, ran with his opportunity last year. Keandre Jackson, another guy, two undrafted guys last year who, you could see the drumbeat all throughout the offseason, right? You heard
Yeah.
about them doing things in OTAs, and you heard about them doing things in camp. You saw it in preseason. And both guys made the roster, and both high energy guys, when they're out there on the field, whether it's special teams, which is primarily where Keandre was playing, they're going to make something happen. That's just what they do. Kayvon Wallace, who I did not know Kayvon Wallace was still on the team, but Kayvon Wallace still on the team. I think isn't he related to Lamar in some type of way? Cousin or something like
I
that.
don't know.
I can't remember. Jaquez Robinson, Silas Waters. I think I touched on all of the names in the safety group right now. Yeah. Robinson and Waters, undrafted guys from this year's draft class. Waters, interesting. I can't say I don't think I watched much of Robinson, if any. I did see a little bit of Silas Waters. It's gonna be interesting to see what maybe he can do on special teams. But Chris, starting with you, what are you thinking about this safety group? Of course, like I said, you got an all everything and Kyle, and then a couple other good pieces back there too.
Yeah, I mean, but we don't really have to say much about Kyle. Kyle is Kyle, so hopefully he can get back into that defensive player of the year type of talk like we had a couple of years ago. Because we know he's talented. We know wherever they put him, he's going to excel. It's just what type of impact can he have on the defense as far as the other guys being able to do their job. We know he's going to do his job, but can the parts around him do their job as well? And when the parts around him do their job, it makes him look even better because we know that whether they ask him to rush the passer, whether they ask him to cover a tight end, cover a slot receiver, whether they ask him to play, center field, he's going to do it at an elite level. And last year was just a weird season for everyone on defense. And although Kyle had a good year, but it wasn't that impactful type of season that we saw the year before where he was getting those defensive player of the year kind of talk. So, obviously we don't have to really spend too much time on him. Malachi Starks, you're if you were disappointed with his rookie season, I don't want to talk to you about football, anything football related. I really don't. When you look at a rookie coming into the league, yeah, he didn't have a bunch of interceptions, but show me where he was dropping a bunch of interceptions. Show me where he was making a ton of mistakes. He didn't make a lot of mistakes this season. Obviously, there was some on tape. He's a rookie. Even if he's a vet, he's going to make some mistakes. But he had a pretty damn good season in a pretty shitty defense.
Yeah.
And if you can have a good season in last year's Ravens defense, that says a lot about you as a player. I watched every single game. I watch every single snap with Coach. He had a damn good season.
Yeah, he did.
So I don't want to hear this stuff about, oh, I hope he can bounce back. No, bounce back from watching football because you do not know what you're watching if you think he had a bad season.
You need to have a bounce back season as a fan.
Right, exactly.
You need to be better. You need to be better.
But I'm really intrigued to see this just goes for the defense as a whole because we know that this defense has talented players. Obviously, last year it just didn't click in a schematic sense, and what players were asked to do, it just never clicked, and we didn't see the full potential of players. With a guy like Jesse Minter, where we know he's a defensive guru is the label that's put on him, and we know that he's a guy who can put players in positions to succeed. And a lot of the talk that we're hearing right now is similar to the talk that we heard when Mike McDonald was their defensive coordinator, where he's teaching guys the why and what the person next to you is supposed to be doing and actually telling you like, oh, this is why you're supposed to be doing this. And when I start to hear that, I get excited because that's exactly what we heard Marlon Humphrey talking about when they first brought in Mike McDonald. So when I hear this, it leads me to believe that these guys are going to be used to their full potential. And a guy like Malachi Starks being used in his full potential, it can lead to, oh, wow, like this dude is a legit baller. Even to the guys who don't know what they're looking at, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, this dude's a true baller now," because he's actually putting up the numbers. He's actually taking the ball away now, and I think with him, it's he might benefit the most from a scheme change when you look at the players from last year. So I'm like I said, I want to see him on the field, and I want to see what year two looks like for him because I know we're all fans of his, so it's going to be intriguing to see how his sophomore season goes. Jalen Hawkins, he's just going to be the next one in that line of third safeties for the Ravens. We know how they like to deploy these guys and how they like to have these multiple looks where they have these interchangeable pieces who on one play, Kyle Hamilton could be down by the line of scrimmage. Jalen Hawkins could be, playing the back end, or Malachi Starks could be in the slot, or vice versa, and just move these different pieces around just to keep quarterbacks off balance and not knowing where to go, not knowing where guys are lining up. So I think that's a interesting little chess piece to have where Hawkins isn't the chess piece, but the fact that you have three safeties who can play multiple roles, that gives you a lot of flexibility on the back end. And you mentioned Keandre Jackson. You know, when you earn the nickname Crash Out in your rookie season, that says a lot when talking about NFL players. So hopefully he's a guy who can, obviously continue to do his thing on special teams, but in preseason, I want to see what he can do on the field too at safety. I'm always intrigued by uh those special team guys who can have that role, but I'm always intrigued to see them when they get that chance on the field to show what they can do at their positions.
Yeah, when CoCap, shout out to CoCap, now special teams coordinator. When he was asked about him, and he's, does he remind you of you? When he's like, no, he's better than me. He's better than I was, because he said Keandre can do some things, physically, athletically, that I couldn't do. So that's high praise, because CoCap, he's a straight shooter. I don't think he's out there like gassing nobody up or blowing smoke. He's a pretty straight shooter. So if he thinks that highly of you, I think that speaks well of your ability. So, Carey, you get the last word here on the safety group. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, to mirror a lot of you guys' thoughts, it's a deep group that I think can fully handle the responsibilities of the defense. I'm glad you guys pointed out Jalen Hawkins. I really like his acquisition. It makes it so all three of your safeties, your starting quote unquote safeties, can play different roles. And the thing I like about Jalen Hawkins is not just the versatility of that, because he can play in the box, he can play back deep, he can play in the slot. Um, he's aggressive. He's an aggressive player with an aggressive mindset, and we need that ball production. Like all of this stuff sounds well and good on paper, but when you get in the games, you need guys to have the attitude that this ball is mine when it goes in the air. And I think Jalen Hawkins brings that attitude and that physical ability to be able to, make some plays on the ball. So I really like that. I like that all three of those guys are sound tacklers. Again, I talked about this. You're moving to this scheme, or you're going to be playing a lot of too high. You need safeties that you can trust to come up and tackle. And I think you can trust all three of these guys to come up and tackle. And to piggyback on you guys about Malachi Stars, I thought he was ready from snap one. I thought he never looked out of place the whole season, and he got better as the season progressed. I think part of it with him is he's a first round safety, so people put some kind of extra pressure on players, on first round safeties, and have a high expectation from a sheer amount of interceptions, fumble recoveries, that kind of thing. I think if you're looking at him through just the lens of that, you're doing yourself a disservice. But I do think some of those splash plays will come in this scheme. I think he is a guy that can make some of those splash plays, and I think you'll see that more often. And part of you seeing that more often is the pass rush is just going to be a lot better. So it's going to create a
Mhm.
lot more opportunities for him to be able to make plays on balls. This is a defense that will have some more smoke and mirrors, pre-snap and post-snap. Just off of that alone, they're going to trick some quarterbacks into seeing a window that actually isn't there. There's going to be some more opportunities from that alone to make plays on the ball. So I think you're just going to see more opportunities for him. And when you look at the totality of it at the end of next season, he may not play all that much better than last year, but it'll kind of look like it statistically because I think he's just going to have a lot more chances to make plays in this defense.
Mhm.
And so I feel really good about those three. And again, I keep harping on this tackling thing, how important it is when you're playing light boxes. So now you look at the fourth safety and the fifth safety, Keandre Jackson. He's going to come up and hit you. Kayvon Wallace, they signed late. He's gonna come up and hit you. So these are guys that are tone setting kind of guys that you have littered through the secondary now that are gonna get after it. And plays coming across the middle, guy, running back, maybe he gets to the second level. These are guys that are gonna come up and make their presence known and stop a gain of 20 and make it a gain of 7. And so, this is a group that I feel really, really good about the upside of it and the depth of it.
All right, folks, we have made it. I will open the floor if either one of you want to say anything about the specialists. I don't want to assume that you don't.
No, I don't got nothing.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, pretty. I think pretty self-explanatory with them. Make kicks, create field position, and Nick Moore is going to do his thing as a snapper. I can't say there's ever been really any issues or anybody's. Oh, hey, it's Nick Moore, man. Snap a ball going all over the place. Never heard that. Never seen that. So yeah, we don't go spend any time really on that. So yeah, that's it. We wrap this up. Like I said, if you haven't checked out the breakdown we did of the position groups on offense, definitely go back and check that out. And now you got two of these, like Chris said, two in July. That's big. That's big coming from us. So it's going to be a very, very exciting training camp into the preseason and into the season, just because there's so much newness. We've not had this in what, 18 years. How long? How long was Arms here? It's a long time,
Yeah.
long time. And so there's a lot of newness with this coaching staff. Obviously, there are new players every year. That's not a new thing, but with this staff, this is really all new, particularly on offense, because it's not even a continuation of a system that they've run before. Something really different. So I'm looking forward. I always get excited when there's newness. I know that comes with growing pains sometimes, but I just think it's exciting when there's new stuff. And I think we have been talking about, I know you guys even more so than me, the last couple of years. Like it's just been time for a change. It's been that way for a while. It didn't just happen last year. Last year was kind of just a culmination, but it had been time. And so here we are. Right, change has come, and they kick off training camp. It's full speed ahead. Right, there's not the lull is over. It's training camp, preseason, regular season, and when we're off. So looking forward to all of that. Anything else you guys want to add before we get up out of here?
Oh man, enjoy the summer. Um, enjoy this little break. Enjoy the World Cup. It's exciting. I don't know what the fuck I'm watching when it comes to soccer, but I know it's exciting. So is have some fun, man. Enjoy the summer.
Yeah, definitely do that. I'm with you. I've been watching it. Not really sure I understand everything that's going on, but I definitely feel the excitement. See what's going on around town, around DC, Maryland, stuff like that. People having watch parties going out. So obviously, it's huge internationally, right? The way that we go crazy about NFL football is basically how the rest of the world goes crazy about World Cup and just soccer in general. So um, that's exciting to see that. And then it's been fun to see like the little videos of the international fans coming here doing a bunch of different stuff too. So it's been a good time. But yeah, enjoy the summer, man. Get outside. It's gonna be hot this week, so at least on the northeast. So be careful out there. But if you can get in some water, cool off somewhere, definitely try to do that. And then like we said, once training camp starts, then we're gonna try to get back and get back on the regular content grind. Lord willing. We'll see
Mhm.
how it goes. But appreciate everybody for listening as always. I know it's a loyal group of y'all out there who be tapping in with each of us kind of individually, trying to kind of feel us out when y'all gonna record, when y'all gonna do another pod. So always appreciate that. That people have been rocking with us for as long as they have, and still want to hear what we have to say. So appreciate y'all. We're gonna get up out of here. Till next time, y'all be good.
Peace.
Peace.